So, is it everything you hoped for?
It's got its ups and downs. But you can't deny that view.
We interrupt this program to bring you...
All right, everybody. My name is Kevin.
My name is Adam.
And I'm Julie.
And we are the Real Movie Guys, and welcome back to another episode of The Real Review, the series where we review and discuss all your favorite movies and TV shows. And today, we're wrapping up the Last of Us series with Episode 9, Look for the Light. A pregnant Anna places her trust in a lifelong friend. Later, Joel and Ellie near the end of their journey. All right, guys, we made it. The 9th episode of The Last of Us. This was the culmination of everything we've seen up to date. I gotta tell you, it pretty much lived up to expectations. I was actually really surprised how well this episode came out, given the circumstances of some of the issues we've actually had with this show since the beginning, especially from, it feeling rushed overall, which is something I do want to talk about. But you know what? It was really good. And if anything, I think this was probably, I'd have to say it's probably the best video game adaptation I've seen as far as something that's come to screen. Adam, go ahead. What'd you think?
No, I enjoyed it too. I agree. I think it is the best adaptation of a video game that we've ever seen. Honestly,
Yeah,
it's really good, and it's very true to the game.
Yeah, I mean, it really delivered on all the points I think we were looking for. But again, there are some issues. But again, this episode and just its own, in its own atmosphere there, I think it did a really exceptional job. It delivered, again, all the points I was looking for, which of course we're going to discuss. But Julie, how about you? What did you think of this one?
I loved this episode. It hit everything that I wanted it to hit, as well as adding some different layers that weren't necessarily in the game that I thought were interesting. I mean, overall, and it's been pretty much every episode, it could have used a little more time. But when, the screen cut, I was just like, wow,
Right.
that was great.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think The Last of Us, and for a lot of people, and even just speaking for myself here, I think the ending of the first Last of Us game, Part 1, is one of my favorite video game endings of all time, because it kind of just leaves the decision to the viewer to decide what they thought of the end. And of course, we'll give our thoughts on it too. But like I was saying, I think this episode, besides some of the pacing issues, because obviously this does feel rushed. And when you're adapting anything, even from a video game or, there's no in-between scenes, right? They kind of have to hit point for point to get to the end. Could this episode have used some breathing room? Definitely. I think so. I think it could have fleshed out a lot more, especially because it kind of starts the pace off correctly in this episode. We get to see something we didn't have from the game. What did you think of that, Adam? We actually got to see Ellie's mom, Anna, giving birth to Ellie in that horrendous scene right out of a horror movie, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. I thought it was really cool, but do you think we could have gotten something more out of that? Again, this is one of those times where I wish they kind of fleshed it out even more. They gave us a little taste and said, "No, that's all you're getting, not anymore."
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those side stories where I was like, I would like to know a little bit more. Why is she there? What is going on with this whole situation? What is
Right.
it like? She's kind of in the middle of this, farm in the middle of the woods here. What is going on there?
Yeah, and why was she out there randomly meeting people in the middle of the woods having a baby? The context of that could have been so much more interesting if they just gave
Right.
it a little more time. But it's kind of what we wanted as fans of the video game. This is the kind of stuff we've been looking for throughout the whole season. And whenever they do this, those episodes seems to be the ones that we remember more so, I think, in my opinion. Like episode 3, getting the fleshed out characters, stuff like that. Even like the little tidbits that they used to do, they kind of started doing that and then they kind of gave up on it, where they had little tidbits of backstory of what was happening in the whole Last of Us universe. It's like they thought it was a good idea, then they realized, oh crap, we don't have much time. We gotta get moving. And unfortunately, I feel like that's where this show really suffers. But again, I'm going to praise it because, of course, Anna, Ellie's mom, was played by the video game version of Ellie, which I thought was kind of disturbing. Did anybody else kind of feel that was kind of weird, hearing Ellie's voice come out of Ellie's mom? It was a little strange.
Yeah, at first I was, whoa.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of a shock, but It makes sense, her being the mother of Ellie, if you will.
Yeah, it was kind of nice, I thought. What did you think, Julie? Did you like that too?
Yeah, Adam just hit the nail on the head. Like, she was the original Ellie, and then to be the mother of this iteration of her, I think that was a wonderful tribute to, honor her role in the game and then give her that much of an important role in the TV show. I would have liked to have seen more of it. Yeah, it was, like you mentioned, dropping the cold openings was interesting. I feel like that's something they could have continued to do, or even maybe have just done like a whole Ellie episode, not just the Left Behind stuff, but like kind of leading up to that,
Yeah,
her
maybe
birth.
something like maybe something mirroring her mom and her journey or something along those
Yeah.
lines. Maybe something, because again, they Marlene and her, like Marlene again, played by Merle Dandridge, she comes back for this episode, which we haven't seen her since the beginning, so it's kind of funny. It's the same for the game, though. I mean, if you really want to look at it for context, she shows up for a little bit, gone, and then suddenly is like this big character at the end. They hinted at such an interesting backstory between her and Anna, and I'm kind of curious what that was. And it's tough because you're telling me that I have to care about this situation, but at the same time, I don't have context for it, so I don't know how much I care for it. You know what I mean? Because again, both great actresses, though. Both of them played off each other extremely well, probably because they are familiar with each other, so I'm sure that helped to some extent.
I feel like you could have, like I keep bringing up the Left Behind, but if you split that episode in two, where you had the first half of that being Anna and Marlene and whatever was happening leading up to the birth of Ellie, like right where that opening ended, and then jump, and then just not, I don't know, kind of, making a bridge version of that Left Behind episode, which while we enjoyed it a lot, I feel like there was definitely some stuff that could have, been shortened.
Yeah, it's weird that the show, again, that's something we'll talk about once we talk about the series as a whole. There's a lot of issues with that, I think, just with pieces that should have been moved around, readjusted, rechanged. But yeah, any show you're going to have that problem. But what this show does, so it gives us this awesome opening. The last clicker we'll see for the rest of the series, which is also kind of disappointing. It was cool. Don't get me wrong. It was nice. But, we kind of could have used a little bit more infected. Just saying. I mean, I know it wasn't key to this whole wrap up of the series, but it is The Last of Us, and there is an apocalypse. It'd be nice to see something a little more exciting at the end there. But regardless, the episode just dives right into the game. Is pretty much verbatim from that point forward. They literally, and I think I had the same issue with the game too, because the game does the same thing that the show does, where they have the whole scene with Ellie kind of escaping from the cannibal situation, and then there's a big time jump. Right? Am I remembering that right, Adam? It just jumps literally, like seasons change, and oh, we're here. And it's funny that they kind of kept the same pacing. Don't you find? I find that kind of interesting that they decided just to do it that way.
I think this would have benefited more if they kept that time jump in one episode rather than splitting it between the last 2 episodes here.
Right.
Because I think it would have just flowed so much better if we just got that, all in one episode. Just kind of, give me 20 minutes ending in the situation with David.
Right.
Give me that time skip and then ending. I think it would have ended at more of a crescendo than it did.
Yeah, I could see that for sure, especially because you're trying to build up the threat. I mean, pretty much all the threats are dealt with at this point when you look at the journey's coming to an end. And it's coming across because they did a phenomenal job. Bella Ramsey, Pedro Pascal. This is actually more Pedro's episode, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But Bella Ramsey, she really does carry that upsetting feeling like the journey's over, and she kind of has an idea of maybe what's to come for her. She just knows that she sees Joel being all happy that this journey's come to an end, that they're gonna have a future together. She kind of knows necessarily that might not be the case, and I find that really interesting that you have that parallel, but they don't dive any more into it than they did in the game. It's just kind of like really a couple scenes of dialogue, and then we get to the legendary giraffe scene, which I'm not gonna lie to you, I thought the giraffes were CGI. I really did. And until I saw the behind the scenes and realized they were real giraffes with a green screen surrounding the giraffes. So there was some green screen there. Were
they actually interacting with the actors?
Yeah, they were actually feeding the giraffes. What did you think of that, Adam? Did you think they were CG? Because I did.
I did. Yeah, I did. did. Absolutely did. Because the way that they do, they look digitized.
They did, and I guess it was because everything around them is digitized that
Right.
they
That's
looked
probably why.
digitized. I don't know what that was. Again, this is the second time the show has done that to me because they did it to the bloater, which I was wrong. I said in our review, like, oh, that's CGI bloater. Wow. Well, I guess I'm freaking wrong. That was actually a real guy in a costume running around. So kudos to you guys for doing that. But again, we get the giraffe scene, which I think is absolutely beautiful, and I don't even really want to go too much into it. It's something you just, when you watch it, you kind of experience it, and I think it's a real scene of majesty for the show and kind of embodies their whole journey. After that, again, things kind of escalate. One new addition to this episode, Adam, I really want to get your thoughts on this too. They added this sub-story with Joel wanting to kill himself. Now, what did you think of that addition? Because that wasn't in the game. Am I correct in remembering that? Again, it's been a while, but...
Yeah, no, you're correct. Yeah.
Okay, so what did you think of that? I thought it was good. I thought it was kind of interesting. Do you think it detracted anything? You think it added anything, necessarily?
I don't think it added much. I think it fits with this Joel, though.
Okay.
I don't really see the game Joel having that conversation. But with this Joel, yeah, I could see it.
Yeah, I guess the pain of losing his daughter has just kind of really just been this like encapsulating journey for him, and I guess just him wanting to take his life away would have been an option for this Joel. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the relationship between him and Ellie, like episode 1, just kicking off, as
Right.
opposed to in the game, which we've mentioned before, where it takes a little bit more of time,
Right.
to actually like get to this point.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. I mean, if maybe that's part of the pacing. Julie, I'll get your thoughts on that. It feels like they kind of just rushed their relationship. Like I know, again, it's the time jump, I think, is part of that. But suddenly it's like Joel's all happy-go-lucky, venting out everything he can possibly to Ellie, saying, "Oh, I love Uno," or was it Uno or whatever? Let's play
Boggle.
Yeah, Boggle. That's what it was. Let's play Boggle, and then telling her this deep, dark, this deep, dark side story of his life. Like I just kind of. I guess with the time jump, we don't have that time in between to really grow with them. You know, we do lose something in a time jump. That's what I'm saying.
I feel like at least this specific part you're talking about was similar in the game, where you jump and Ellie is very sullen because she knows it is coming to an end,
Right.
and Joel is just trying so hard to kind of boost her up. And especially, I mean, it's definitely heightened in the TV show where, you know, Pedro as Joel is full dad mode now, you know, and he's trying, you know, she's gone through a traumatic experience. And so she has that as a burden. And then knowing that this is coming to an end. And so he's just pulling out all the stops to like really kind of show her, like, I was so cold in the beginning, but now like, this is how I truly see you. And, you know, trying to be funny and happy go lucky and then opening up to her, you know, I enjoyed that addition, especially because it was, I guess, hinted at earlier in the season, you know, when he makes that comment, you know, oh, someone shot at me and they missed or whatever. Like, yeah, that was a nice touch. You know?
Yeah, it's a nice touch. I think it does add a little bit more, like Adam said, to this version of Joel that we're watching right now. I can kind of see how it makes sense to the story. It might have been the way out, but then, you know, he missed, you know, essentially, and he kind of carried on his life and he found somebody new, which again ties in beautifully to the rest of this. So I normally don't do this, but I am going to actually let there be a spoiler warning from this point forward to the people at home. If you have any interest in The Last of Us, I do recommend just going to watch it. You know what I mean? At this point, it is a phenomenal ending. I think you're really going to enjoy it. It's one of those things I think you just have to experience for yourself and maybe not have it ruined. I know it defeats the purpose of the review, but if you're here already, I'm sure you've seen it and just want to see what we think. So we'll dive in it from there. So after they have this bonding togetherness there for a second, they suddenly get attacked by the fireflies and they jump right into the hospital scene. Joel wakes up, finds out that Marlene explains they've taken Ellie for surgery to remove the whatever it is, I guess the fungus thingy-majiggy.
Cordyceps.
Sure, cordyceps. Let's go with that. That's probably what it is. They're going to remove that and create a cure and, you know, save the world. And Joel's like, I ain't having any of that shit. No way. No way. Not my girl. And this is the thing I had an issue with, right? And I think, Adam, you're going to have the same issue I did with this. This situation is exactly the same as the game. So from now to the end is exactly the same. No changes were made. Even some of the shots were like literally video game shots of him like crouching behind a wall or taking cut. Whatever, that's not the issue. The issue is kind of like you said, this scene works for video game Joel. Does this scene work for TV show Joel, in your opinion?
I guess I wanted, so this, it like accentuated. Okay, so here's the issue I have.
Okay.
This Joel was like pretty much a softie throughout the entire series. Right. And then now all of a sudden we see this brutality in this last episode. Like,
and I mean, he's
obviously
Rambo. I want to clarify, he's Rambo out there, like blasting people,
Absolutely.
barely an inconvenience, taking out people.
Yeah, like yes, we've heard the stories, but we haven't actually seen him be like this brutal.
Only twice. There's only 2 times that I can recall, and correct me if I'm wrong. Once in the beginning with the guard that he pounded his head in, and then the second time was when Ellie was missing and he brutalized those 2 guys that he captured, stabbed them in the kneecap. Other than that, I don't really see a time he was that brutal to show like that he's this cunning, and you know what I mean? Like I don't feel that rage from him.
Go ahead.
Oh, you're muted, Julie.
I feel like that comes back to our overall issue of just the lack of opposition, whether it's infected or even just nameless Fedra people or nameless raiders. Because you remove so much of that, you're eliminating opportunities for him to show that ruthlessness.
Sure.
Because even like when he took out those clickers in episode 2, like you see it then as well, it's not a human foe, it's an infected, so it doesn't have that he has an excuse to kind of go all out on them. But
right, but I think what we're more talking
opportunities.
Right, I think we're more talking about just the brutality of it, though. This Joel has never really shown that side of the brutality that we've looked for. Again, video game Joel doing all this makes sense to me, right? But this Joel going to these extremes, like no mercy, like just executing people, it's a jump a little bit for me. And I don't want to come across, it's not terrible at all. It does work. And if you really want to like convince yourself that it's perfectly fine, you can do that. Because, Ellie was this thing he found in this destroyed world that's precious to him now. And he's willing to do anything, literally anything, to keep it safe. So you can make that argument. I'm just saying from a viewer standpoint of having watched the whole series beginning to end, I find it just a little bit of a jump. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get across.
I guess going from the difference in the first half of the episode where he's just being all sappy, trying to bond as much as he possibly can, to all of a sudden, cranking it up, and now he's brutally murdering, people all over the place. Yeah, going
Call of
through,
Duty
guns
right there.
blazing. Yeah, exactly. Not missing a single shot, like crazy.
Right.
I think that's the biggest issue there is, it's just so polarizing.
Right, and that's what it is. And I don't know if there's maybe a better way they could have done it. Maybe make it a little more sloppy, a little more emotional. Maybe that would have made me convince it more instead of it being such a clear-cut, like, executioner style going in there in a montage of killing people. Again, I get it. And to the context of the story, it does work. But if you're a little more observant of what they were doing, it just seems a little bit out of reach to me. That's all I'm trying to get across. But ultimately, what we do get is Joel makes his way to the operating room, and he makes a choice. He executes the doctor that's going to cut open Ellie. He lets the 2 nurses go, which ironically, one of them was played by the actress who's going to play Abby, or who was Abby in The Last of Us Part 2. For those who don't know that, that's a little bit of an Easter egg there. I won't go too much into Abby because that's something to talk about another time. But they did make sure to zoom into the doctor bleeding out on the floor, which I guess we'll see what that means a little bit later on when we get to season 2. Once they do that, we have Joel goes down to the garage and he confronts Marlene for the last time, and they have their confrontation. And Pedro Pascal, man, he really carried this episode. Bella Ramsey, of course, she is a great Ellie, again, doing a great job as well. But this was Pedro's episode to carry the emotion of the weight of the decisions that he was making. And he can do it. He clearly did it. Even when he's talking to Marlene about, like, he'll sacrifice anything just to save this girl. Like, he doesn't care. And I think that's the most beautiful part about this show is once we get to the end, he explains to Ellie that, oh, they found other people. You're not special. You're not special at all. Ironically, she's incredibly special to him, which I love that. And once they get there and they're about to go back to Tommy's, she asks him, Joel, did you tell me the truth? You said that I wasn't special and they didn't need me. And he's like, yeah, I promise. And she just goes, okay, cuts. Cinema. It is. And I'm glad they retained it because, again, they don't really give you an answer as to if Joel did the right thing, yes or no. I'll just go around. What do you guys think of the decision? I'm just curious to see what you guys think. I'll start with you, Adam. What did you think of this whole decision and this journey that he went on, Joel?
I've been fighting with this decision since the game came out, however many years ago. I don't know. A lot of it's sacrifice the needs of the few for the many type deal.
Right.
I know that was touched upon at the beginning of, I don't know if they said it in the beginning of this show, but I know in the very early on in the game, that's actually a line that Joel says himself.
Yeah, I think he did. You're right. Yeah.
So it's always a question that I ask myself, like, I don't know whose side I'm on. I think I'm always going to be on Joel's side, unfortunately. So
yeah, because again, you have all this time that you spend with Ellie, so at the same time, you're like, I'll protect her no matter what it takes.
Yeah.
You have that feeling, and it does come across in this show. They do an extremely good job with it.
I think one of the things that we have to remember is that Joel isn't necessarily a good guy,
right?
And that's probably where this decision really kind of.
It's incredibly selfish.
Yeah.
And it is. There's no other way. I don't think there really is. I mean, regardless if it's right or wrong, it's incredibly selfish, no matter how you look at what he did. But I can kind of sympathize with him, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like
I'm
just always going to be on his side, unfortunately. So.
And the irony is, I always like to look at it as Ellie kind of knows that Joel's lying. Like, she knows. Yeah. She knows. I mean, she never flat out says it. I didn't play part 2, so I don't know if does that ever come up in part 2?
I'm not saying anything.
Okay. I don't know if it does. So again, ignorance here. I will play part 2 by the time we get to the next season, though. I promise, just so we're up to date. But, based on my ignorance, she knows. She looks at him and she can see like the tears in her eyes. They did a really good job with this scene. I just have to tell you, cinematically, just like, you see the tears kind of welling, and she's like, okay, like either she's mad that she knows he lied to him, or she hates him, she loves him, like all these different things, all these different emotions embodied in just that okay at the end of the episode. Again, man, cinema. I don't know what else to say about it. Julie, how about you? What did you think of the whole wrap up of this? Because when we played it the first time, I told you were in for something, and you were just blown away the first time we even played this. I remember.
Yeah, I gasped both times. Playing the game for the first time, and then it cuts. I'm like, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
We don't get to see them, go to their happy ending, it left me with that same impact both times, because it really, you have to sit with it and think, where do they go from here? And, the weight of his decision, and I think Ellie has mixed reactions. It's, she did feel special, and she makes that comment earlier in the episode, if we don't go here, because I think he gives her the option, we don't have to go, we always come into trouble. We can just go back to Tommy. She goes, then this would all be for nothing. So I don't know if she's feeling that regret, like this was all for nothing, and my goodness is not going to be used elsewhere. But I also don't know if she understood the full extent of what that meant.
Right. There's a lot of questions for it, I think. And I think even more so, if you look at what Joel did, we don't really know much about the Fireflies, which I always thought that was a missed opportunity too in this series, is we could have gotten a little bit more out of, because the Fireflies are kind of two-sided, right? There's always good things about them and there's bad things, but we never really got to deal with that duality of decision and whatnot with the Fireflies. Ultimately, though, Joel, if they did any good, he kind of took it away when he killed Marlene and pretty much all of them. So I don't know, at least that sector of Fireflies ceased to exist along with that doctor.
Right. I felt like the killing of Marlene was more vindicated in the show because they had that flashback with Anna and showing her, promise me you're going to take care of her. Promise me you'll do good by her. And, Marlene delivers that same line in the game, but not having seen that little backstory with the two of them. Because hearing her, she's like, well, I promised her mother this. I'm like, yeah, and you're backing out on a promise.
That's interesting.
While it is, for the greater good. It's just, I don't know.
That's interesting. What do you
my mouth from Marlene.
Right. What do you think of that? I didn't even actually put that together, Adam, that whole thing, now that I think about it. Having extra context to that line at the end now. That did add something, I think, for me a little bit. Now that I look at it in retrospective here.
Yeah, I know I thought about that too when the game had come out, because I've played the game so many different times.
Yeah,
I've
of course, right.
dissected it in and out. And it's true, like, she's not exactly protecting her anymore. She's protecting humanity. So I guess who's at fault here?
And I think there's an interesting discussion point, which maybe we'll save this more when we talk about the whole series as a whole. But a lot of this show almost feels like it's always had to justify everything Joel has done up until the end. Like, we never are allowed to have Joel be the bad guy, kind of like Adam was saying, which was the dual. Again, that was kind of the big thing with the game, was all that gray that we didn't have an answer for. The show kind of wants to be like, well, he's saving Ellie, but, Marlene did promise her mom that, she was going to take care of her, and she didn't. So, she kind of got what was coming to her. In the game, it's more just like a cold-blooded murder at that point.
Yeah.
And it is here to an extent. And again, I know I'm sounding like I'm being negative. I'm just trying to throw these thoughts out there, not be negative about it, because I think this episode is really, really well executed. It's near perfection, I think, for what I would have wanted. But again, there is something just a little bit missing. But if you didn't play the game, and it's really hard, and then we'll get to our final scores just to talk about it. Adam, for someone not playing the game, is any of this going to be an issue, or is this going to be something exclusive to us?
I think that, no, I do not think it is. I think that it's going to be a show that would probably do better just as a binge. I know we've mentioned that earlier, but I think that this show would just be a very good, watch in succession, especially the last, 2-3 episodes would definitely be more of a better experience to watch all at once.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, Julie, what do you think of that too? Do you agree with that, or how do you feel?
Yeah, I think, just binging it, I think would be a better, because I feel like you can do that with the game. I mean, yeah, the game takes longer than, it would to watch the show. But you have those long gaming sessions where you can accomplish a lot happening. Same thing with the TV show. I think, yeah, that week to week, I feel like sometimes hurt it a little bit.
Yeah, and that's something we will save, when we talk about the series as a whole. But right now, like I said, season 1, episode 9, Look for the Light, was a phenomenal episode overall. It took everything we were given. I think it's going to please the video game fans. It's going to please, I think, fans of the series for the first time who have just seen the show. They're kind of going to understand what the hype's about. I think this is really the episode. It took to get to this point. I mean, it's been great throughout the whole entire season, but this was definitely the premiere episode for me. So I think we're at that point. We're just going to give our final scores. I'm going to give The Last of Us, episode 9, Look for the Light, a 9.5 out of 10.
Swear to me that everything you said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
Okay.
It's almost there. It's almost perfection for me. There's other episodes I have raised the higher scores because I think they were just that much closer. But Look for the Light is a perfect culmination of this series. If there was no Last of Us Part 2, and in my eyes there currently isn't until I pick it up, this is like the perfect story. It really is, just from beginning to end. Does this adaptation leave a little bit to be desired? Sure, that's something we'll save for discussion when we talk about the series. But as far as this episode in particular, it's an incredibly well executed episode. Pedro Pascal reminds us that he can do all different kinds of emotions, whether he's making us laugh or making us cry. The action, the duality of man's decision, the gray areas, it's all here with that beautiful cinematically shot ending and the draft scene. So I really can't complain too much. I think everyone's going to really enjoy this episode. And again, it proves that The Last of Us wasn't just a great game, but I think The Last of Us is a great cinematic experience. Adam, how about you? What do you think of this one?
I am going to give The Last of Us episode 9. I think I'm going to go with the 8.5.
Oh, no, wait. Please. Let me go. You've just come after her.
Just because of the issues with Joel showing his aggression, the polarizing I feel like it would have benefited more if the time skip was in the same episode. But I mean, beyond that, it's still a great episode. I think that it was very well executed. I just wish there was a little, like, it was like what was it, the shortest episode, right?
Yeah, ironically,
I wish
one
it
of
was,
the most important episodes was the shortest.
Give me another 10 minutes. That's what I wanted. I think
Yeah.
that's why I'll detract that 0.5 points for that.
I can understand that. And I was honestly looking closer to that too at some point. The reason I just went so high is just I think it's ending landed, and that's what a lot of people are going to remember.
That's true.
When
You're
you
right.
trip up along the way, I think a lot of people will be more forgiving of those situations, even with some of the pacing, because the ending does land so strong. I think it deserves that higher score, but I could totally understand where you're coming from with that one. So not wrong. All right, interesting, Adam. Julie, last one. What do you think?
I'm going to give The Last of Us episode 9, Look for the Light, a 9.5 out of 10 as well.
People are making apocalypse jokes like there's no tomorrow. Too soon?
No, it's topical.
Oh, I love this one. Moon rocks taste better than Earth rocks. Why? Because they're meteor.
Oh, that's terrible.
Oh,
That's
fuck
a-
you.
that-
That was actually good.
That's a 0 out of
All
10.
right, all right.
This episode stuck the landing for the whole show. I had the same, emotions in this latter half as I did while playing the game. It made me laugh. It made me cry. I felt suspense, watching it. It was just really enjoyable to see the culmination of Joel and Ellie's journey, and to really continue to ponder those questions that the show posed originally. My biggest complaint, which is the only reason why it's not a 10 out of 10, another maybe 10 minutes, and my overall complaint of the whole show is more infected.
More infected for sure.
We had a couple like sewer moments in the game and bloaters and stuff like that. I think that would have heightened the intensity of the episode. Give them just one little tunnel crawl,
Right.
and then get attacked by the fireflies, and then continue
Joel
on.
fights
and
off
perfect.
2 bloaters in that
Yes.
section.
Exactly.
missed opportunity. for
Ellie
sure.
almost drowns.
Yeah.
Hey, it's
a lot of-
hey, HBO doesn't have enough money for that. Calm down. Listen, they're
Don't
going out
make
of
it
business. Warner Discovery
objective.
there. I think it's interesting. I think the best part about this is we're going to have a whole new generation of non-video game fans talking about this ending, and it'll be nice, fun water cooler discussion again. Yeah, I love when that happens with the show, whether it was Game of Thrones, just talking about the ending and seeing what people think. And it's interesting to see with some announcements with what's going to happen with season 2 at this point. That's going to be interesting, which we'll save for our full discussion when we talk about the season as a whole. But anyway, guys, thank you for joining us for this episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin. That's Adam and Julie. We are your real movie guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. We'll see you in the next one. If you guys like what you've seen here today, consider giving this video a like and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to stay up to date with everything Real Movie Guys related, make sure to hit that subscribe button and check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And don't forget, all you audio listeners at home, we are available on many podcasting platforms. Just search The Real Movie Guys, you should pop right up. Thank you again all so much for joining us on this episode of The Real Review. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. Catch you next time.